WCW's 1997 Great American Bash took place on June 15th in Moline, Illinois. Around 9,500 fans attended the event, which is crazy when you consider the previous Nitro, a TV show, had around 22,000 fans inside the Boston Fleet Center. A reported 220,000 fans purchased the event on pay-per-view, which was similar to last month's Slamboree event. We have a double main event tonight. The Outsiders defend their tag team titles against Roddy Piper and Ric Flair, while Randy Savage vs DDP 2 will close the show. Let's waste no time and get right into it. This is WCW's Great American Bash 1997. Ultimo Dragon vs Psychosis is our opening contest. Sonny Ono turned his back on Dragon at Slamboree, and on Nitro, he asked Psychosis if he wanted to talk business. Psychosis is now being managed by Ono, and Dragon's out to get a little revenge. Straightforward, no nonsense stuff. It's billed as a respect match. Sonny wants Psychosis to teach Dragon some respect, but you can just ignore all that. Straight away you can tell we've got an excellent crowd for the bash when they pop for the first arm drag.
Hey, have you ever been to Japan?
I have not.
Well, I've been there quite a few times.
The two fight over wrist control, some nice smooth mat wrestling here, and then Dragon performs another arm drag.
Together almost 10 years ago.
Psychosis spits on Dragon, and this begins a leapfrog sequence. A leapfrog sequence that ends with Psychosis slapping Dragon out of the air. I mean, he really slaps him out of the air. Psychosis plays up to the negative reaction he's receiving, and it looks like he's enjoying himself. And I'm sorry, you gotta hear another pop here for Dragon.
When the NWO has the cruiserweight belt, you never know what's gonna happen there.
A simple elbow drop getting that kind of reaction. I could go on and on here, but I'd end up showing all of Dragon's offense. In short, this crowd's fantastic and they love Ultimo Dragon. He performs his top rope balancing act and Psychosis gets booted away. We then see the kick combo, and Psychosis takes a little time on the outside before getting back in the ring. Dragon performs his rack backbreaker, and this pleases the fans in attendance. Psychosis goes on offense next, and he's careful not to do too many flashy moves, making sure to maintain heat and not give fans a reason to cheer for him. It's all kicks, punches, and strikes from Psychosis. A dropkick stuns Ultimo Dragon, but Psychosis finds himself on the outside again after Dragon snaps his neck over the top rope. Dragon then misses a plancha, and this gives Sonny Ono a chance to lay in a few kicks. Dragon then finds himself hung up on the middle rope and Psychosis hits a leg drop. Half the crowd cheers while the other half boos. And back in the ring, Psychosis lays in the elbows and he performs a backbreaker. Even Mike Tenay talks about Psychosis working a more deliberate style. The referee refuses to count Dragon's shoulders to the mat when Psychosis tries to use the ropes, and immediately after the break, Dragon gets thrown out of the ring. He then goes to suplex Ono, but Psychosis saves his new manager. Back in the ring, Psychosis gets rocked with a jumping back kick and Dragon follows up with a handspring back elbow. Psychosis finds himself on the outside again and Dragon hits the Asai moonsault. The crowd loses its collective mind here. We then see a brainbuster followed by a tombstone from Dragon. Psychosis hits a top rope spinning wheel kick, and Psychosis's dive over the top rope looks absolutely brilliant. What an opening match this has been. Psychosis counters a Frankensteiner with a pin, but he only gets two. He then goes for a moonsault, but Dragon kicks him out of the air, and this gives Dragon a chance to set his opponent up, and we see the Dragon Steiner. This should end the match. Dragon goes for the Tiger Suplex, but Sonny Ono causes a distraction, a pretty big distraction that lets Psychosis hit a dropkick. The heels get too confident though. Dragon ends up throwing Psychosis into Ono, and Psychosis gets kicked in the head. We see the Dragon Sleeper, and that's it over. Ultimo Dragon wins the match, and the excitement in the arena is truly something to behold. WCW pay-per-view opening matches, man. There should have been a compilation of these released at some point. Absolutely fantastic stuff once again from WCW and the Cruiserweights. Chris Benoit's answering questions on WCWWrestling.com. He has his own state-of-the-art super fast laptop, as you can see right here, but a WCW intern is typing out Benoit's answers. I like the big fuck off TV they're using here for an external monitor. Next up, here's a story about two brothers, Rick and Scott. They don't use drugs and they're always on top. The Steiner brothers take on Harlem Heat, with the winners getting named the #1 contenders for the tag team belts. JJ Dillon announced on Nitro that the Steiners were #1 contenders and Harlem Heat didn't agree. Booker and Stevie would interfere in the Steiners' match against the Great Muta and Masahiro Chono, while the Steiners got revenge later when Harlem Heat faced Damien and Cyclope, and that's really all we've got here. Now, this one had potential. It's the Steiners versus Harlem Heat after all, two of the greatest tag teams of all time, but the finish is going to let this one down, unfortunately. Scotty and Stevie started it off, two big boys beating the hell out of each other with forearms, back elbows, and check out Stevie Ray's big boot right here, Jesus. Scotty hits an exploder suplex and Rick decides to tag in and he nails his scoop power slam on Stevie. Booker T and Scott then done a little work where Scotty ended up locked in a full Nelson that almost made the referee's eyes fall out. Steiner got out of the hold and he kinda let go during his double underhook powerbomb, but it still looked fantastic. This spot here though didn't look too good. Looked like Scott actually hurt himself during the landing, but he was able to continue fine. Booker took advantage with a Harlem sidekick. Rick got tagged back in and he took a beating on the outside while the referee was distracted. And it turned into your standard fight for the hot tag as the dog-faced gremlin tried his best to get back to his corner. Scott comes in, he cleans house. Booker T takes a big boot followed by a belly-to-belly suplex. We get a big old brawl with all four men, and then we see a Frankensteiner from the future Big Papa Pump. All was going well until Vincent hit the ring. Yeah, Vincent, NWO Vincent, who's done absolutely nothing on Nitro since his debut. Vincent drops an elbow on Booker T, the referee calls for the bell, and this means Harlem Heat win via disqualification. Vincent acts like he just done Harlem Heat a big favour, but it looks like Stevie Ray didn't want any help from Vincent or the NWO. Vincent pays for his actions dearly though. The Steiner brothers absolutely fuck him up after the match. He takes the Steiner Bulldog and Rick Steiner spits on Vincent as we move on to our next match. Konnan vs Hugh Morrus was up next. These two broke up at Slamboree and they've been sneak attacking each other ever since. Because they were involved in the Dungeon of Doom though, no one really cared. I'd say that was a shame because both guys, especially Konnan, were pretty damn good in the ring. But WCW had a special way of making you not care about great wrestlers thanks to the storylines they were involved in. Konnan gets more opportunities as time goes on thankfully, and he's definitely one to watch as Reliving the War continues on. I don't think he gets nearly enough praise for how good he was in the ring during the whole Monday Night War era. Again, the Morrus vs Konnan storyline was the problem though. Nobody really cared and it maybe done these two more harm than good. Fans could be heard chanting boring even though the action in the ring was solid. Morrus takes too long going for the moonsault and Konnan's able to knock his opponent off the top rope. Konnan then locks in the Tequila Sunrise and it's over. Morrus gives up. After the bout, Mean Gene interviews Public Enemy. It's pretty lighthearted, but Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge also say they're being overlooked. Harlem Heat should not be the #1 contenders. The Public Enemy should be getting a title shot. After the promo, Rock and Grunge dance in the audience and the crowd gets into it. There's a much more joyous feeling to the Great American Bash when compared to King of the Ring 1997, so far at least. The overall tone of this pay-per-view feels a little more fun, whereas King of the Ring felt a bit more serious, maybe even a bit more mature. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing either, by the way. Wrath vs Glacier's up next, and I don't feel I need to tell you guys the whole story here. All you need to know is Glacier got his helmet stolen by Vandenberg. Vandenberg collects rare and unusual oddities, and Mortis and Wrath are also part of his collection. You also need to know that Mortis and Wrath are fucking awesome. Whereas Glacier shows up late to appointments, he uses all capital letters when typing, he doesn't return his shopping cart after getting his groceries, he takes up 2 parking spaces, he plays music from his iPhone in public places, he talks about people behind their backs, he pauses the fucking game to look at the special moves, he posts spoilers to movies on social media. Glacier sucks, man, he fucking sucks. Unfortunately, Morrus has to get handcuffed to the ring post tonight so he doesn't interfere in this match. Wrath does well to begin with, but he misses a pump kick and this allows Glacier to act the maggot and show off. No one wants to see that. A jumping sidekick sends Wrath to the outside, Glacier performs a plancha, and he lands some karate chops to the head all the way from Casa del Frosty Balls. Vandenberg tries to get involved but he gets chased away. Wrath then takes a super kick but it isn't enough to end the match. Glacier gets destroyed at the guardrail and Wrath tries to use the ring steps to his advantage, but Glacier turns it around. Morrus tries to loosen the turnbuckle but he's having no luck. Glacier lands a karate chop from the apron, and he covers Wrath back inside the ring, but Wrath gets a foot on the bottom rope. Morrus starts fucking around with Glacier, and this leads to Morrus dropping the ice cold cockknocker on the top rope. Glorious. But it gets even better. On this pay-per-view, ladies and gentlemen, Wrath applies a chin lock on Glacier. That's right, a chilly chin lock. I'd lose my mind if Wrath performed 3 of these. This one stays locked in for ages, which is a good thing. Morrus is still trying to break free from the handcuffs as Glacier begins fighting out, but then... Nice. It gets better. Wrath pulls off a somersault plancha from the apron and back inside the ring, the big man performs a nice top rope clothesline. Underrated, guys. He was absolutely underrated. Glacier takes a few slaps to the face, but Wrath loses the advantage moments later when he misses a second rope elbow. Glacier lands a back body drop, and give him credit, this jumping forearm looked pretty damn good. A side suplex brings Wrath back into the match, but not for long. Glacier pulls off a superplex, and he smacks Morrus off the apron immediately afterwards. Vandenberg then distracts the referee, and Morrus pulls a chain from his tights. He tries to throw it to Wrath, but unfortunately, Morrus can't throw for shit. To be fair, Wrath also got pushed, but it was still a bad throw. Glacier nails Wrath with the chain while Vandenberg tries to get the handcuff key from Nick Patrick's pocket. Glacier lands the cryonic kick, and Glacier wins again. Hulk Hogan does more jobs than Glacier, for fuck's sake. Vandenberg manages to free Morrus, and Glacier doesn't realize he's about to get destroyed. Morrus attacks from behind, Glacier gets handcuffed to the top rope, and you're expecting Ernest Miller to show up again, but that doesn't happen. Chili McFreeze gets completely annihilated here. Nobody saves him, and my god, I'm going to save this video to my phone and watch it every time I feel depressed. Instant good mood material. Glacier gets knocked out, and the Great American Bash continues on. If Madusa failed to beat Akira Hokuto next, and if Madusa failed to capture the WCW Women's Championship, then she'd be forced to retire. This was a stipulation Sonny Ono added to the match, and well, Madusa got beat. Madusa steps away from in-ring competition after this bout, and the entire women's division also closes down. Reports online are mixed here. Some say this was all due to a pay dispute. Others say Madusa was going to step away from the ring and focus on becoming a valet. But really, there was simply no one for her to wrestle anymore in WCW. Eric Bischoff was paying for Japanese wrestlers to fly over and work odd matches here and there, while Madusa was really the only proper WCW signed female wrestler who was on the official roster. Yeah, there was Luna Vachon and Jackie too, but Luna's appearances were also few and far between, while Jackie was much more of a valet during this time period who could pull off wrestling moves. Building storylines for Madusa became a problem. The Japanese female wrestlers couldn't cut promos, or they weren't allowed to, and from a TV perspective, there was simply nothing for Madusa to do. Bischoff said there wasn't enough talent to build a women's division, and so the project was scrapped. No women's division means there's no need for Madusa to stick around as an in-ring talent, although she does end up coming back to the ring. This match though turned out to be pretty good. Madusa's mid-match comeback completely blew the roof off the arena, and she fed off the crowd's energy big time. But Madusa ends up hurting her knee after a failed top rope move. She does a great job of selling the injury by refusing to place any weight on the body part, and this results in Madusa taking a lot of punishment. Knee breakers, bow and arrows, knee locks. She gets little moments where the adrenaline takes over, and at one point she even hits her German suplex finisher, but Sonny Ono broke up the pin. Hokuto stands on Madusa's leg and knee while the challenger screams in pain. Madusa makes the mistake of putting her legs up to block an aerial attack, and this results in more damage getting done. In the end, Madusa tries to lift Akira up for a back suplex, but she just falls to the mat. Hokuto hits her Northern Lights bomb, And that's the match over. Madusa cries on the mat, she needs to get helped out by officials and medical staff, and Mean Gene Okerlund decides to remind Madusa that her career is now over, while the fans chant, "Leave her alone." Madusa pushes Gene's mic away as she gets assisted to the back, and that's the end of the WCW Women's Division. Up next we have Chris Benoit vs Meng in another death match. It's billed as a return death match, which doesn't sound right, but yeah, these two had a good match at Slamboree, but the stakes are a little higher for Benoit at Great American Bash. If Chris can beat Meng tonight, then he's one step closer to getting another Kevin Sullivan matchup on pay-per-view. To their credit, Benoit and Meng have a different match at this event in comparison to last month's pay-per-view. Chris dives out of the ring to attack Meng right at the opening bell. He then throws Meng inside the ropes and he performs the diving headbutt. He then applies the crippler crossface, trying to get this one over with early. But Meng lifts Chris up onto the top turnbuckle while still locked in the hold, and Benoit gets launched to the other side of the ring. Still, Chris stays on top of Meng. He fails to apply a figure 4, but he still manages to drop the arm and we see another crossface. Meng gets a hand on the bottom rope in a death match, and Meng makes Benoit pay with a hard kick to the side of the head. After a bit more back and forth, Chris tries to suplex his opponent to the outside. It looks like Meng forgot to let go of the top rope though, because the landing was a little awkward. Again, Chris pays moments later when he gets hung up in the Tree of Woe, and Meng lays in a ton of kicks, the last one in particular looking quite nasty. Chris gets up before the 10 count, but a spinebuster puts him right back down. A Dragon Sleeper gets applied next, but again Benoit stays in the match. Meng gets stunned with a few knife-edge chops, but he puts Chris down with a body slam, and he follows this up with a top rope splash. Meng forgets himself afterwards and he tries to pin Benoit. A kick to the head sends Benoit to the outside, but Chris turns it around by throwing Meng into the guardrail. The two get back inside where Benoit hits a German suplex, not once, but twice. Meng wisely takes some time on the outside to get it together, and it done him a world of good, because Benoit finds himself in the Tongan death grip moments later, and he has to get out of the ring in order to escape. After a miraculous recovery and after the guys trade strikes on the outside, Meng brings it down to the mat with a chin lock, and Chris gets kicked in the head once again when Meng breaks the hold. Meng goes to the top rope for another splash, but Chris dodges it and we see another crippler crossface, the third of this match. Meng fights out, we see some scrappy offense from both guys, and then we get the fourth crossface of the bout. Meng just keeps getting caught out. After making it to the ropes, Meng gets frustrated and he begins swinging wild punches at Benoit. Chris ducks when Meng goes for the death grip. This allows Chris to apply the fifth and final crossface, and Meng can't escape. Benoit's finisher stays locked in for an extended period of time, and they lose the audience here. They've been silent for the last few minutes actually, but the final crossface stays locked in for maybe a little too long, and you can hear a few boring chants in the crowd. Meng eventually gives it up, so we'll have to see if Jimmy Hart was true to his word, and we'll have to see if Chris can now wrestle Kevin Sullivan again at Bash at the Beach. And yeah, that's it. It's a decent match. They tried something different, but I thought the Slamboree bout was better. Both men getting taken out on stretchers, especially after Benoit had just celebrated. I thought that was overkill too, and it took up a lot of time. Kevin Greene vs Steve Mongo McMichael. Don't fast forward just yet, because Kevin Greene has already proven he knows how to work the crowd. He also knows how to talk, and he really isn't all that bad in the ring. Well, he knows his limitations and he plays within those limitations. Maybe it's Mongo we have to be careful about here. Greene gets in the ring by kicking Mongo to the mat, and a few big forearm shots are sure to ruin Steve's day. Kevin then lands a jumping clothesline and he lays in more of those forearms, and then Mongo takes a break on the outside to get himself together. Greene makes a rookie mistake by going to the ropes and allowing Steve to pull him out. Mongo works over the leg a little, and then he notices Kevin's family sitting at ringside. McMichael brings Kevin over to Mama Greene, but Mama Greene smacks Mongo with her purse. This allows Kevin to go on offense, and Mongo gets thrown into the ring steps before Kevin checks if his mum's having a good time. The more experienced Steve McMichael knows that the first man in the ring gets the advantage, and Greene goes down when he slides back in under the bottom rope. Kevin takes a kick to the midsection and Mongo throws up the symbol of excellence. Half the crowd chants Mongo and the other half boos. Greene then tries a back body drop, but Steve ain't gonna fall for that shit. Kevin takes a neck breaker and it looks like Greene doesn't have a hope in hell tonight. McMichael kicks his opponent before shooting him off the ropes and Kevin performs a Luthez press. The guys take a moment to psych themselves up and then we see a big tilt-a-whirl backbreaker from Mongo. Consider the limited experience inside that ring, guys. Seriously, this is on pay-per-view and they aren't doing bad at all. It's certainly no masterpiece, but you gotta give credit to Kevin Greene especially. Greene gets thrown in the corner while Mama Greene looks on with concern. Mongo applies a unique ankle lock that maybe looks more like a foot massage. Kevin takes a few forearms in the corner, but he manages to kick McMichael away, and we see one of those Mongo bumps. Fantastic. Greene goes upstairs, he hits a top rope shoulder tackle, but Mongo gets a foot on the ropes during the cover. Greene's clothesline afterwards pops the audience as Steve goes over the top rope. Mongo takes a body slam on the outside, and then Deborah pretends to hurt her ankle. Greene shows concern for a moment, but then he realizes what's going on and he tells Deborah to get out of his face. Good man. Mongo tries to get that first man in the ring advantage again, but Greene sees it coming. Greene gets back inside the ropes, he lines Mongo up with a 3-point stance, but Steve moves out of the way and Deborah decides to distract the referee. This gives Double J Jeff Jarrett a chance to come down and smack Greene with the magical briefcase, but Greene manages to pull Mongo in for the shot, and our match comes to an end. Kevin Greene wins via pinfall, and the Double J vs Mongo feud continues on. Deborah, for the first time, seems pissed off with Double J, and the commentators wonder why Jarrett didn't run back down to help his fellow horseman during the pin attempt. But at this point, who the fuck cares? It feels like Mongo and Jarrett will just get back together on the next episode of Nitro and all will be forgiven. Or will it? Madusa receives medical attention backstage, as in a guy having a good look at her knee while Madusa cries. Yeah. The Outsiders versus Flair and Piper then, the tag titles are on the line. This one started off as a tradition versus new blood kind of storyline, with Kevin Nash in particular getting angry with how guys like Flair and Piper left the wrestling business for the new generation. Syxx, Hall and Nash took a loss to Flair, Piper and Kevin Greene at Slamboree, but since then, things have gotten a little more personal, with the NWO targeting Ric Flair while Piper's been missing from Nitro. They've made it clear that this isn't about fighting tradition anymore. They want to end Piper and Flair's careers. Brett and Sean weren't the only ones getting involved in backstage altercations too. At the previous Nitro, Piper and Nash had their own little tussle. Remember how we looked at the main event tag match and I talked about how odd it was that the Outsiders stood there with nothing to do while Piper and Flair were laid out on the mat? Well, apparently the match wasn't supposed to start like that. Piper wasn't supposed to attack Nash right away, and when Big Kev tried to stop Piper and have the match that was discussed backstage, Piper apparently began acting up and he wouldn't get out of the ring. He would just flop about, sit in the corner for a moment, and then he completely ignores Nash to attack Hall. Watch it back yourself though, the first part before commercial break is definitely strange. Kevin said he slapped Piper backstage after getting riled up by Hulk Hogan, and Piper left the locker room with his tail between his legs. Piper, on the other hand, says he threw Kevin out of his locker room after leg diving the big man. Who you want to believe is up to you. Maybe both stories were correct and it was a slap and a leg dive before others broke it up. Maybe both stories are incorrect or embellished as reported by the likes of Eric Bischoff on his podcast. But both guys are professional during this pay-per-view bout. This one wasn't nearly as good as the Slamboree 6-man tag. Hall starts off strong, but the Nature Boy quickly turns it around with a chop, and Hall takes a moment to regroup on the outside. Back in the ring, the Flair corner bump leads to Big Nash hitting a big boot, and this gets a great reaction. Syxx also lends a hand, and the Nature Boy goes down after a clothesline. Big Sexy gets tagged in, he tells Piper to suck it, and Nash goes through his usual routine of elbows in the corner followed by a sidewalk slam. Flair gets rocked by another Hall clothesline, this time from the apron. but Flair comes back with a low blow that makes the big man crumble to the mat. Piper and Hall then get tagged in and the crowd pops for the hot rod. He makes quick work of both outsiders before locking in the sleeper on Scott, but Hall crotches Piper on the top rope and the sleeper gets broken up. Piper now needs to tag out, but just like Monday Nitro, Rick jumping into the ring ends up causing more harm than good. Mark Curtis gets distracted and Syxx almost kicks the hot rod's head off. Flair runs out of the ring and he fights Syxx all the way back up the entranceway, leaving Piper all alone to get destroyed by Hall and Nash. The commentators suggest that Flair could have been jumped by the NWO backstage because the Nature Boy does not come back to the ring. The outsiders make easy work of Piper, and although the hot rod fires up a few times and he does fight back, there's just no way he's beating both guys on his own. Nash lets Hall do the honours and the match ends with Roddy taking the outsider's edge. Clearly, we're on the path to a Roddy Piper versus Ric Flair match, but guess what? That match doesn't happen. We'll see how this unfolds on Reliving the War over the next few weeks, but yeah, a pretty weak match here. Kevin Nash says to the camera, "If that's an icon, then what the hell are we?" Randy Savage elevated DDP's career to the next level at Spring Stampede 1997. Dallas defeated the Macho Man in the main event of the pay-per-view, and ever since then, their rivalry has continued without losing any steam. Savage snapped on Nitro when he attacked JJ Dillon, and the following week, JJ decided not only to find the Macho Man, but he made the Savage vs DDP Great American Bash match a non-sanctioned Falls Count Anywhere encounter. Dillon decided he wasn't going to suspend Randy Savage because that would mean tonight's main event wouldn't happen. And so here we are. Kimberly Page comes out while Dallas's music plays and DDP attacks from behind. Dallas tries to end it early with a diamond cutter, but the Macho Man gets out of harm's way momentarily. DDP follows Savage to the outside with a plancha. The plancha hurts Page just as much as Savage. The two get back in the ring after Macho uses Elizabeth as a human shield. Page is able to nail Macho with a clothesline, and he follows this up with a diving clothesline. The fight goes to the outside once again, and Savage gets the upper hand after a rake to the eyes. They fight in the crowd again, just like Spring Stampede, with Randy maintaining control and Page getting thrown into a row of chairs. Dallas turns it around by throwing Savage into a brick wall. This one's gonna be another back and forward affair, just like Spring Stampede it seems. Savage gets thrown out the doors, and when he comes back, Page is right there waiting to smack him with a crutch he found, and the two continue to brawl as they make their way back down to the ring. Dallas takes a bump on the ring steps when the two make it to the ringside area, and Randy uses this opportunity to empty out the contents of Shawn Michaels' fanny pack into his hand. DDP then gets blinded, and Randy breaks a DDP sign over Dallas's head. It looked like it was made of some sort of thin plastic. Randy then begins taking the tape off DDP's injured ribs, and when the referee tells Savage to stop, the Macho Man spits on him. Lovely. The referee tries to stop Randy again, and he ends up getting decked. That crazy side of the Macho Man is now coming out, it seems. Referee Mickey J then takes a piledriver, and he takes it like a champ too. Page and Savage then begin trading blows, and DDP manages to land a headbutt. Savage gets the better of DDP once again in the corner, and our favourite referee Mark Curtis comes down to try to get a little order. Savage ends up throwing him out of the ring along with DDP. Macho then goes after Kimberly, and Nick Patrick runs down for the save. Macho does not attack Patrick. He instead begins following Dallas up the entranceway where a picnic area has been set out inside the arena. They say this is a VIP area for fans. This bit's pretty fun. Dallas uses a tray to hurt Savage. A table gets broken. Even the conveniently unlit barbecue gets used. It's just pretty random that it's a picnic area beside the entranceway. DDP brings Savage back to the ring. Nick Patrick is now our referee, and Savage gets his little Slim Jim smashed into the ring post as Dallas begins building momentum. Randy gets hit with the Diamond Clash, but once again Page gets stopped in his tracks and a jawbreaker sends him back to the outside. Savage exposes the floor, and Nick Patrick tries to stop Macho Man from pulling off a piledriver. This leads to Savage attacking Patrick and a photographer, but Page puts an end to Macho's rampage with a steel chair shot. Dallas goes for the diamond cutter inside the ropes, but a low blow puts an end to that plan. Dallas has to find another way to hit his finisher, and that's exactly what he does when he counters a suplex attempt. There's no referee to count the pinfall, and Dallas is too hurt to cover Macho anyway. Just as Patrick begins waking up, Scott Hall appears and Nick gets kicked in the head. Page dodges Scott's attack with the tag team belt. The bad guy gets taken out and Page signals for the cutter, but Savage picks the belt up and Dallas gets floored. Scott hits the outsider's edge, Randy hits the diving elbow, and that's it all over. DDP loses this match. I enjoyed this match, and I admit I've seen it quite a few times. I don't think it's as good as the Spring Stampede bout, just because the first match means a whole lot more for DDP's career, but this is a good match that you shouldn't skip. The show ends more or less immediately after the pinfall. Not a bad show from WCW as they continue to put on good pay-per-views in comparison to the WWF, in my opinion anyway. The thing about the Great American Bash 97 though is that it's kinda forgettable. It's fun watching this show, but give it a few weeks and you might struggle to remember anything that happened, except maybe who won and who lost. It's a WCW pay-per-view and that's it really. Nothing to complain about, nothing to rip apart, but nothing to go crazy about either. I've said it a few times about certain matches, but Slamboree was better last month. And it's hard to compare this with King of the Ring too, because while the WWF show was lacking in places, they also put on the highly underrated Shawn Michaels vs Steve Austin match. The Great American Bash 97 is just okay, and I'll leave it at that. We've got the Fallout Nitro to look at next week though on Reliving the War. Hopefully you join me then, and we'll start looking at the build-up towards Bash at the Beach, the 1 year anniversary of the NWO. Thank you so much for watching guys, and thank you for watching all the videos on this channel. I do really appreciate it, and take care.